Good morning, guys. How are you doing? Today, I am going to start another topic in the SDG list, and this is about climate change. And this one is topic SDG 13, 13. Okay, so I hope you'll find this interesting. So let's go on. Now, you may have been hearing recently uh, phrases like the hottest weather, oh, it has been really hot this summer, or it has been the hottest since the last 50 years, or this has been a very, very heavy rainfall, you know, in 100 years or something, and these kind of headlines or phrases we hear almost every year now because the weather is not how it used to be 30 years ago or 40 years ago. So it seems that almost every year Japan is hit with record-setting rainfall. It makes a record. It often results in great damage to many places. And climate change is mainly caused by global warming and is a major reason for extreme weather events such as heat waves, floods. We have a lot of floods nowadays. There is also a lot of typhoons, and some of them are really very strong. And also we have droughts where you have no rainfall and no water. In fact, climate change has become such a serious problem that it is being referred to as the climate crisis. So it is not only the climate change, because change may be good or may be bad, but this is a climate crisis. So we have a crisis situation in regards to climate. So now, the impact of climate change on the world is very wide ranging. Now, tragedies like the Australian bushfires that killed nearly 1 million animals make headlines, but extreme weather conditions are endangering wildlife everywhere. It is not only Australia, it is everywhere. According to the IUCN Red List, IUCN is the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. Okay? So they publish a red list in which they list up the animals or the species which are in danger of becoming extinct. So in that red list, there were 1,750 species that they listed, which are considered to be endangered because of global warming. So of course, climate change affects us also. Us means human beings. Extreme weather can ruin crops. It can destroy the crops. It also destroys the small farming communities and leaves people without food. In developing countries, food and water shortages can cause starvation, the spread of disease, and regional conflicts. When there is no food, there is bound to be some kind of conflict between the rich and poor people, or between the rich and poor countries. It's the same thing. So if there's a conflict between those who have and those who have not. Now we must act quickly to avoid the irreversible effects of global warming. I say irreversible because you cannot reverse these effects. They are there to stay, So scientists predict that the Earth will heat up by around 4 degrees by 2100. 4 degrees more, the temperature of the Earth will be 4 degrees more than it is now during the hottest time. This would be devastating to humans, to animals, and also to the environment. Now, in response to this threat, the developed and developing countries from around the world, they gathered, or they came together in 2015 to draw up the Paris Agreement. The agreement aims to limit the rise in temperature to 2 degrees Celsius. So not 4, but 2. Halve it, make it half, or try to make it half, with a 1.5 degrees Celsius as an ideal goal. So they agreed that, okay, we try to make it, reduce it from 4 to 2, the increase in the average temperature. But then they also set an ideal goal, which was 1.5 degrees. That if possible, we should try to bring it down to 1.5. But that is an ideal. So if they can get it, that would be phenomenal. So this will be extremely difficult to achieve, even if the entire world works together. So what is difficult? The 1.5 degrees of ideal expansion that you will tolerate. So this will be difficult, and even if the entire world, all humanity works together, all the countries, all the scientists, even then it would be difficult to hold it there, at 1.5 degrees. In order to do this, scientists estimate that global greenhouse gas emissions must be reduced to almost zero by 2050. So the gas emissions, they must be reduced to almost zero by 2050, within 30 years. So there should be no emission, basically. That's what it is. If we want to achieve our ideal goal, all emissions must stop from factories, from cars, from everywhere, if we want to meet that goal. Now, to fulfill its commitments to the Paris Agreement, Japan will have to make significant changes. In fact, Japan is the 5th highest CO2 emitting country in the world. Now, this may sound very surprising because Japan is thought of as a country which does not emit so much CO2. But the fact is that Japan actually does emit a lot of CO2 because of certain reasons. So nearly 40% of Japan's greenhouse gas emissions are from power plants. So one reason is that almost 40% of Japan's greenhouse gas emissions, they come from power plants, the plants which produce electricity. But and the reason is that half of these power plants are coal powered. They are powered by coal, by burning coal. Now, coal is a very, very high producer of CO2. So that's the reason. So half of these power plants are powered by coal, and the burning coal releases a lot of CO2. So it must be internationally abolished. So making power plants which use coal, these must be abolished, these must be banned internationally. And from now on, in whichever country you want to set up a power plant, it should not be based on coal. It should be, based on something else. Okay, so despite this, Japan has announced that it will continue to use coal power. So in spite of this intense international pressure on Japan to mend its ways, Japan has recently again announced that it will continue to use coal power and has even developed new coal plants. So Japan, in spite of that pressure, in spite of that international, recognition or acceptance that we should not be producing any more coal-based or setting up coal-based power plants, Japan has announced that it is going to continue to use coal power and has even developed new coal plants which will produce electricity. Shamefully, Japan has been awarded a mocking fossil award for being reluctant to tackle global warming. So therefore, some international organization has awarded Japan with a mocking fossil award. Mocking fossil award. Fossil is fossil fuels like coal and petrol and gasoline and so on. So it has received a fossil award because of its reluctance to tackle the global warming issue. You may be thinking, if entire countries won't change their ways, if such countries, responsible countries like Japan, if they are not going to change their ways, if they are not going to change their thinking, what good can my individual actions do? So what can I do if the whole country like Japan, it's a big, powerful, rich country like Japan, if they are not going to change their ways, what can I do? But fortunately, there's a lot we can do. We as individuals, we can do a lot. About 20% of Japan's CO2 emissions come from people's homes. So, of course, Japan has emissions, but 20% of those emissions, they come from people's homes, like from my home or your home or somebody's homes. So by making efforts to save electricity, so if we make efforts, if we try to save electricity, then we can make a real difference. We can produce our own electricity. How is that possible? Oh, we can put up solar panels on our rooftops. And these solar panels, by catching the sunlight, they generate electricity, which may not be 100% enough for our needs, but it can be 75 or 80%, of our total electricity requirement. So that is a lot. And that can, if everybody else, if all people, they set up these solar panels on their rooftops, then that will reduce the electricity that we require for our comfortable lives. We can also find like-minded people, people who think alike, people who think like us, and work together with them to address or to manage this climate change. In 2018, a young girl with a handmade sign sat down in front of Sweden's parliament building. Do you know who that girl is? Well, you must have heard her name. That is Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg. And she's now become a household name. Everybody knows her. She's still only a teenager. I think she is still not 19. So since then, her small protest has become the largest social climate movement ever. So since she developed this courage to register a protest against the use of, against this electric consumption and climate change, so she has become extremely well known everywhere throughout the world. So when we work together, we even the smallest actions that we take can lead to great things. Okay, so this is about today's topic, that is climate change, and what we understand from this topic today is that climate change can be controlled despite what the countries do, they sometimes do things. They sometimes, many times, they don't do the right things. They also have politics to think about. So, and but even though our countries do not support us 100%, we as individuals, we as people can do can take it in our own hands to do things that we can do. We can reduce the amount of electricity that we use. We can reduce the amount of water we use in our homes, and similarly so many other things that we can do. We can sort of limit the use of plastic uh, uh, individually, by refusing to get a plastic bag for things that we buy at a supermarket. you know so we can do all these things, and we can also do many other things too. We can reduce the use of our cars by taking the train, or by cycling to work, for example, if we are not so far away. So we can do all these things. So what we would like to see is that people think about all these actions that you can take, and thereby make this world a better place for everybody. Okay, so that is it for today. Thank you very much, and we will see you again. Okay, bye.